Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. This is your host, Sean. We've got a really big episode for you today. Patrick Kane is back. Playoffs are starting for the NHL. Only 2 more games left in the NBA season. Bulls are getting ready to face probably the Washington Wizards in the playoffs. Baseball season has begun. But before we start, let's start with our sponsors, the Rockford Ice Hogs. Next home game, Wednesday, April 15th versus the Charlotte Checkers. The Ice Hogs begin a 3-game homestand to close out their regular season schedule when they host Charlotte, the BMO. It's the final WXRX Dollar Day of the season, so fans have one last chance to enjoy hot dogs, sodas, beers, and companion tickets, all for just $1. Only 90 minutes from the city limits and fun for the whole family. Be sure to check out icehogs.com. Also, the show is brought to you by audible.com. Head over to audible.com/Swerski Sports and get one of the audiobooks absolutely free. That's free, no money. Blood on the Horns, The Long Strange Ride of Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls. Blood on the Horns details the infighting and conflict between Jordan, Phil Jackson, Scottie Pippen, Jerry Krause, and Jerry Reinsdorf. Or Turning the Black Sox White, The Misunderstood Legacy of Charles A. Comiskey. Tim Hornbaker not only tells the story of Comiskey's incredible life and the sport at the time, but also debunks the Black Sox controversy. Check out any one of these or 100,000 other titles for absolutely free by going to audible.com/Swerski Sports. That's audible.com/SWERSKI Sports. Audible.com/Swerski Sports. So let's start with the Blackhawks. They are the losers of 4 straight 1-goal deficit games. 4 straight. That is not the way you want to go into the postseason, especially when you are a team that should be competing for a championship. So that's just not excusable. So they're the losers of 4 straight. The Blackhawks have lucked out. I say this, they lucked out by playing Nashville, because Nashville quite possibly may be the only team in the playoffs that's just as bad lately as the Blackhawks. That was a team that a lot of people thought there was nobody going to catch. They were going to win the President's Cup trophy. That Nashville was the elite class because of how well they're playing, and they just have not fared well as of late, and neither of the Blackhawks. So this is 2 teams that are really struggling, and one of them has to right the ship in the series because somebody's got to win. I think the firepower belongs to the Blackhawks. I think they've got the chance to win this one. But I can't figure this team out. A lot of you put your hopes on Patrick Kane returning because he's going to return. They said he's going to play Wednesday for Game 1. But all with Kane back, not all is still right in the world. Having Kane back isn't the sole issue for this team. Chris Versteeg is playing like dog doo-doo. Yes, dog doo-doo. And not just like the regular doo-doo, the brown, gross, smelly stuff. I'm talking about like that white dog doo-doo that has like the white stuff growing on the outside that looks like twice as disgusting. That's what Chris Versteeg is playing like. Like if you put a Hawks jersey on that and give him some sticks and skates, that would be Chris Versteeg. But not only that, you've got David Rundblatt, who's just a bad hockey player. And Michael Roosevelt looks like a shell of his former self. And he looks really lost out there. He looks like a confused old man. I seriously, if you could mic him up, sometimes he'd be like, "Who am I? What am I doing here?" Michael Roosevelt is terrible. And it's so frustrating because those 2 guys are Coach Q guys. And they're going to keep playing Because if anybody else played like that, they would be so quick to get traded, sent down to Rockford, or get their butts set on the bench. But these are Coach Q guys, and he just rides them. You had some talented young guys in Adam Clendenning and Klaus Dahlbeck, and you just traded those guys away. Why? So you could keep Michael Roosevelt and David Rundblatt. Yeah, that's why. It's so frustrating. The defensive pairings just don't make sense. Versteeg, despite playing like poo-poo, is on the first line with Hossa and Taves. Doesn't make any sense. And that just makes that line worthless because Chris Versteeg is playing like crap. Why not put Saad there? Saad's playing well. At least you'll have one line that's playing really well. Because Hossa's playing well, Taves is playing well. You put Saad up there, you've got at least one line that's playing well. Then you've got the Bickle, Sharp, and Shaw line. Blah. Blah. Our friends at Puck and Hostel, you should follow them on Twitter. They have the best nickname for Bickle, and that's One Trick Bick, and that's about right. He's just a one-trick pony, and Sharp hasn't done anything since for most of the season, but especially since the accusation came out about him, and Shaw's been up and down, and having him play center is not the answer. So that line is crap. You finally, the last game of the season, the Hawks sat David Rundblatt and made him a healthy scratch, and they put in Michael Paleota to play that defensive spot. And so you've got two guys that were collegians that didn't even play for Rockford step up. And then this is a direct response to the Kevin Hayes situation from this offseason, where he refused to sign from college to the Blackhawks because he felt like he was going to get buried in Rockford for a while, and he felt he should come right out and play. So he didn't bother to sign with the Blackhawks, and they lost him. And I know part of this is to sort of send the message to collegians that you can come to the Blackhawks and play, and part of it's to stick it to Kevin Hayes. But you've got two players, Kyle Baughan and Michael Paleota, who are collegians, one from Vermont, one from Colgate. And that's fine and good if that's what you want to do. But I just feel like there's a lot of guys in Rockford that have paid their dues and played in the minors and played really well that are not getting the opportunity to play. You've got Shaw playing center. He has no business being center. Why not pluck one of your centermen from Rockford who's actually playing well? So it's just really frustrating how they're managing this lineup. But regardless of any of that, is the schedule for the playoffs is the schedule for the playoffs, and it's out and it's set. So game one will be this Wednesday, April 15th. The second game will be Friday, April 17th. Third game, Sunday, the 19th. Then Tuesday, the 21st. Thursday, the 23rd. And then Saturday, the 25th. And so those are, this will be a road series for the Blackhawks because the Nashville Predators ended up in second place in the conference. So the Blackhawks will be, they will be on the road the first two games, and then 2 games at home, and then it'll be 1-1-1. That's the way the series goes. So it'll be 2-2, 1-1-1, which is a lot of travel, but Nashville to Chicago, not such a bad commute. And it'll be interesting to see how many Blackhawks fans get tickets for the playoffs to go down there. But regardless, with the defenseman issue is Trevor Van Riemsdyk is out. I think that they hoped that he would be there. He healed from the knee injury, the broken patella, but playing down in Rockford and some rehab starts, he got hurt again, if you're not aware of that, and he is out another 8 weeks. Well, I guess probably at this point another 7 weeks. So he is not available. He had surgery, he's done, and the defense still needs to be shored up. I honestly think putting the way they've been doing it with mixing weak players, cough Rundblad, cough Roosevelt, and masking them with some of the stronger players, it's just not the way to do it. I think that's really just watering down your product. If you put Duncan Keith with Michael Roosevelt, instead of having one solid pair with Keith and Seabrook, you have a meh pairing with still a weak link, and it's just watering down what you have. I mean, if you are going to do anything in the playoffs without showing up this defense, you got Timo Keeman coming back, but who knows how much gas he has in that tank. I think you really need to put your lines back together and really shore that up. So I think they need to put the top two pairs back together and minimize the ice time of that third pair. It's better to have tired good players than Roosevelt and Rundblad on the ice. So I think that's the better option is Keith and Seabrook and Oduya and the Hammer together, and then whatever you're going to do for that third pairing, just minimize their ice time. It's a crappy thing, and you're gonna have tired defensemen, but really without Trevor Riemsdyk coming back, and granted they did recall Kyle Kaminski, who played fairly well for the Hawks, and they recalled Antti Ranta. So unless they're planning to do Kyle Kaminski with Kimmo Timonen or some sort of mix in that way, I feel like they're really just gonna have to minimize the ice time of that third pair. But at least the Blackhawks should be entering this first round with pretty good health. Brad Richards and Kimmo Timonen, who missed the last few games of the regular season with upper body injuries, they should be ready to go. Like I said, they recalled from Rockford Antti Ranta and Kyle Kaminski, so I'm guessing that means Scott Darling is going back down. I'm not sure, but this is going to be an exciting series. It's always a good series with Nashville. This is, regardless of how the two teams are playing, these are two really talented teams. Nashville has played really well the last few years, and they've got a good goalie. They can go on a nice streak, and they play a stifling defense. So this should be a good series, and one of these teams is going to have to break out, and hopefully it is the Blackhawks. It is the team that they match up probably the best with, both on paper, if they were both playing well, and just because Nashville's not playing that well. So go Hawks, commit to the Indian, and by the time we record again, we should have 3 games under the belt, and we could see how this team's going, because that third game Sunday, when we typically record, it's a 2:00 game, so we should have 3 games under our belt, and we should have a better sense of what the Hawks are going to do. Hopefully it is getting ready to go back to the United Center and go for that sweep, but we shall see. The other team getting ready for the playoff run is the Chicago Bulls. 2 games left in the season. The Bulls are tied with Toronto for the 3rd seed and the right to play Milwaukee in the first round. I honestly don't see much of a chance of that happening, where the Bulls get that 3rd seed. But, anything's a possibility. And the reason I'm saying that is because there's 2 games left. They're tied with Toronto currently. Toronto has the tiebreaker, and all they have left to play is Boston, who they've dominated, and Charlotte, who is not a very good team. The Bulls, on the other hand, have to play Brooklyn and Atlanta, and so they don't have the tiebreaker. So it's a tough road for the Bulls to get that 3rd seed and play Milwaukee, which would be really nice. Despite that last game, they really do have Milwaukee's number. Otherwise, they will be playing Washington. There's not most teams are set. So first place, second place, they're set. That's not changing. 4th and 5th fifth and 6th are set. So Wizards can't catch the Bulls. Milwaukee can't catch the Wizards. Nobody can catch Cleveland, and Cleveland can't catch Atlanta. So they're just evenly spaced out. Really, the last, the 3rd spot is up for grabs. So they will be, if they can't catch that 3rd seed and win out these last 2 games, look for them to be playing Washington with the home court advantage against Washington, which is a much tougher series for the Bulls. But at least they have a healthier roster coming in. Derrick Rose is back from his knee surgery. He had a rusty first game, but that second game went 22-8, so 22 points, 8 rebounds against Miami in that really awesome comeback victory. And I want to talk about that game. I turned it on. I was watching something else. I think it was the Cubs game. This time of season is rough. I'm trying to watch some game film for the NFL, and then I've got the Cubs and the White Sox playing regular season, and then you've got the Blackhawks and the Bulls winding down their season, getting ready for the playoffs. And I have about to be 6-month-old and a full-time job, and I'm tired. It's a lot to catch up with. So I missed the first half. I have no idea what happened. I was pretty disgusted. I turned it back on a little bit later, and I looked at the score, and I was like, what the hell? Going on like a 34-9 run or something like that. It was really nice to see, because that's been one thing that's really worried me, is that this team, they're the heart, and the resiliency that they need once they get into the playoffs. They really they went down to a Miami team who's not great, but has played over their heads, I think, and it's really had a never say die attitude. Came back without Jimmy Butler, and just came back from a 20-point halftime deficit to win the game and win it fairly handedly. So that was really awesome, and that's a good sign going into the playoffs, is being able to finally start clicking and figuring things out, because this is a team that is deep. I'm going to reiterate all the things I said at the beginning of the season. They are a deep team, but they haven't figured out how to play together yet, because they haven't been on the court together yet. I mean, between Dunleavy's injuries and Taj's injury and Joe's injury and Jimmy Butler's injury and, of course, Derrick Rose's injury and Doug McDermott's injury, it's been a constant revolving door of people coming in and out of the lineup. And at least the one good thing is it gave guys like Nikolai Mirotic a chance to shine, and he has shined. He has been a really great player, and they're going to need him come playoff time. So going into the playoffs, they're going to be a healthy team, and I think they're going to make some noise. This isn't the same team that got swept out last year by Washington. I think that was a sweep. Got dominated by them. This is a completely different team. So if they end up playing Washington's not playing as well as they did last year, and the Bulls are a much deeper, better team. They can score. They're going to be able to put up some points. They're going to have a healthy Derrick Rose. So teams are going to have to start planning for the Bulls. So we're going to be have to check out what happens the last two games, especially with the whole situation with former Bull and current Atlanta Hawk Thabo Sefolosha, who got his leg broken by the New York's finest after arrest in a nightclub, which is caught on. I'm not going to talk about this much, but go watch the tape. It's on TMZ Sports. Going to save comments about that, but it's going to be interesting what happens with Atlanta going forward with that whole issue, and we'll see the last game of the season when the Bulls play them. See if the Bulls can win that and hopefully get that third position. And really, I've used beating Milwaukee in the first round as a springboard for round two. What else? Baseball is back, and I've got one word for all of the Chicago baseball fans, and granted, it is taken from the page of our hated mortal enemy, Aaron Rodgers. Relax. I will talk about my beloved Cubs first. Quickly, let me say this, just because this is a point I want to make. condolences to Javi Baez regarding the passing of his sister. I can't imagine what he's going through. That's got to be tough. I mean, even though he knows she had some health issues, losing your sister is just got to be a really tough situation, especially when you're as young as he is. And wish him the best. And so all of you that are religious, keep him in your prayers. Those that are not, keep him in your thoughts. Regardless of what you think he did on the field or anything like that, look at him as a human being, and he's going through an emotional family situation right now, and it's beyond his control, and just want him to get mentally healthy and take his time coming back. So he's in our thoughts, and our condolences go out to him and his family. But as far as the Cubs season, I know we were all, well, most of us were fairly certain the Cubs were going to struggle on offense. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. I mean, we have hopes, and I think going forward it'll be something that can be somewhat solved, and we'll get better eventually. But going into the season, I think most people that were realists felt that the Cubs were going to struggle a little bit on offense just because they don't have a lot of veteran bats, relying on a lot of young kids and hopefuls to be run producers. But the pitching, is that really where we thought it was going to be at this point? So, I mean, there's not a lot to talk about because they're only 5 games in, but our $120 million investment, John Lester, had some troubles opening night in a loss to St. Louis. Travis Wood, our 5 starter, got roughed up in Colorado. And Kyle Hendricks had a rough outing today in Colorado, even though the Cubs had a really great comeback win against a pretty good Colorado team. But let's take a closer look. I mean, looking at that Lester outing, sure, he didn't have great stuff, and I don't want to talk too much about the fact that he can't throw to first base, which is mind-boggling to me. Actually, I take that back. Let's talk about that for a little bit. I was reading an anonymous AL scout that was talking about that, and he said, "Oh yeah, we all know that he can't throw to first base, so he's not going to keep runners on, and they're going to be able to get a good jump and steal bases on him." But apparently, that's been in the game plan all along. I mean, I don't watch a lot of American League baseball. I'm much more of a National League guy. But he knew, or everybody knows that he can't throw to first base. He doesn't keep guys on, but a lot of teams don't abuse that like the Cardinals did, because they still are respecting the catcher throwing to first or him actually developing a move to first base. But he just can't throw to first base, and it's something that the Red Sox apparently have worked on for a while, but he's not good at keeping runners on. But regardless, he's your ace, and you don't really expect him to give up so many runners. But against the Cardinals, he did earn that loss. But thinking about it a little deeper, is the Cardinals are a perennial contender, and they were a preseason World Series favorite. And really, if you look at the scores and you watch the game, it was 3 guys that beat John Lester and the Cubs. It was Matt Holliday, it was Holliday, Carpenter, and Hayward. Those 3 guys beat the Cubs. And if you take those 3 guys out of the equation, he pretty much blanked everybody else. So it wasn't as bad as it seemed. And granted, he didn't have his best stuff that night, and far from it. He still had a pretty good performance. He gave up 3 runs. It was 3 guys that got those hits. You give him his stuff, and suddenly that's a much different game. And to be fair, you give up 3 runs in a 9-inning game, you should still be contending for that. But the Cubs' offense didn't do anything either. So even if Lester gives up 1 run, that's still a loss. So I'm not that worried about that one. Travis Wood and Kyle Hendricks are pitching in Colorado. That's an awful place to be a pitcher in. I don't know why any pitcher that has a choice signs with Colorado. And regardless of what the Rockies' record was last year, they're playing well to start the season. So I'm not going to knock those guys yet. First start of the season, they're pitching in Colorado. Not ideal place to pitch, especially against a good Colorado team so far this year. and it's just a hitter's park. At least though Kyle Hendricks didn't get the loss. Cubs won this game. Neil Ramirez got the victory. But reading between the lines, in between those, we had an absolute gem by Jake Arrieta. That was a phenomenal game against the Cardinals. I mean, granted, it's just 5 games in, but that was the performance of the year so far. And then Jason Hamill had a nice performance as well with a victory, and the bullpen has been rock solid, which is what we expected. That was a strength of the team last year. So far, so good. But Lester, going forward, has amazing stuff, and I think we'll see that in start number 2 tomorrow against Cincinnati. But as the offense goes, I think it's pretty much what I expected and what I feared a little bit going into the season. Is we have Rizzo, he's struggling to open up the season, and we've got a bunch of young kids working through all their troubles at the same time. Castro is really the only guy that's hitting the ball. Dexter, Fowler a little bit. But Castro can't field his way out of a wet paper bag. He's a terrible fielding shortstop. But this is pretty much where everyone should be screaming for Chris Bryant. He's hitting over 300 with 2 home runs and I already. Blah, blah. I get it. The kid can wallop a baseball. And I really do get it that he's going to make Soler and Rizzo see better pitches. And he's an infusion of offense into this team that's struggled a little bit on scoring runs. But there's 2 questions. One is, and this sort of gets to the heart of the matter, is where is Chris Bryant going to play in the field? This is the National League, not the American League. You don't have a DH. There's no position. You have to be in the field. The big knock on Bryant is that even though he's playing third base, he's not a natural third baseman. And I don't know if the brain trust in Jed and Theo really see him as a long-term third baseman. But the question where I'm get confused is, I know that there's all this talk of him being a move to a corner outfield spot, but so far in Iowa, he's played every game at third base. But I really do suspect that they're going to start working him at corner outfield spots, and that's going to be part of the delay of him coming up. Is the fielding issue? He can hit the ball, but you want to make sure that as a young team that's struggling to score some runs, you don't want to waste good pitching talent if you're going to have errors and give up runs and lose baseball games with your fielding. You just can't have that. If you're the Cubs, you just can't do that. And you've already got a suspect fielder in the infield with, not even suspect, a terrible infielder with Starlin Castro. And I know he's getting better, but he's just not a good fielding third baseman. Cal Ripken, he is not. But you don't want to have a third baseman in there as well that's going to struggle a little bit. So it's where does he play in the field? And that's a legitimate question you have to answer. Because if you try to infuse his offense, but you're hurting yourself on defense, is that going to do you any good? And the second point I want to bring up is, let's just say, for hypothetical sake, is the guy sets the rookie record and hits a RBI in every single game that he's up and winds up with however many games he's up, 150 some RBIs, 156 say. The Cubs lost their season opener still. If he gets a run RBI every game, the Cubs lose that opener 3-1. And then they still lose that game to the Rockies 5-2. They still wind up with this same exact record, even though he's there. Granted, this is kind of an extreme oversimplification of things, but I think it brings up a solid point, is this one guy is not a fix in baseball. One guy is not going to fix everything. Sure, having somebody in there that's hitting great is going to make the people around him a little bit better, but you theoretically should. It's one guy. It's 9 guys are playing at a time, and you can't have one guy carry the whole load. And especially one guy who has taken officially in a regular season game, 0 major league at-bats. So you can't rely on that. He's not going to be the savior. And I think a lot of people have a lot of high expectations about him. And I see the point of keeping him down in the minors, but I don't think that Jen and Thea are going to bring him up first game that he's available, because I think they don't want to put that pressure on him. If he comes up that first game he is available and they keep that year of service, everyone's going to have that game circled on their calendar, and they're going to say, this is the game Chris Bryant comes and hits 3 home runs today, or whatever he's going to do, and they're going to expect a lot from him. If you wait even a few more games, I feel like you're going to have less audience watching you. I mean, everyone's going to know when he comes up, and they're going to turn it on, but they're not going to be prepared and sitting there and waiting and have that game circled on their calendar. This is a guy who's really young. He's really young, and you can't put so much pressure on him, because he's one guy, and he's a one young guy, and he's going to go through struggles. There hasn't been a player in baseball history that hasn't struggled at some point. So he's going to struggle at some point, and do you want that to be the first time he struggles in a major league uniform? I don't know. But, I mean, if you want to push that point of bringing Chris Bryant up to infuse some offense into this team, you also have to consider bringing up Addison Russell as well. He was Baseball Prospectus #1 prospect for the Cubs, and he is hitting almost 400 so far for Iowa. Granted, it's just a couple games, but he's a legitimate baseball player, and you already have some struggles at second base. Alcantara hasn't secured that spot. Javi Baez he's tending to a family situation, but he's down in the minors. Addison Russell could come up and be that second baseman, and he's a much better fielder than any of the other guys at second base. So if you really are going to push that bring up Chris Bryant, you have to consider bringing up Addison Russell as well. Because right now, I know I'm going to sound like I'm talking a little bit out of both sides of my mouth, but the Cubs have a hole at third base and second base, especially after that hit Mike Olt took. And I'm hearing that there's no broken bones, but I would be shocked if there was no broken bones in his wrist after he took that pitch right off his wrist, because he went down in pain. But Mike Olt's not the answer. So you have a hole at third base, you have a hole at second base, and they have high-level prospects that happen to play those two positions. The two weakest positions they have are their two best minor league players. So again, like I said, it's talking out of both sides of my mouth, but if you are going to bring up Chris Bryant, you sort of are pushed to bring up Addison Russell as well. And like I said, relax. This team is going to start hitting. The pitching has been pretty good. Even with some rocky starts, the bullpen has been great. John Lester is going to be good. Kyle Hendricks, you give him a chance to pitch at home or in a place that's not in Mile High. I think this team is going to really shock people, and I think today's win coming from behind to beat a good Colorado team is sort of the window of what you're going to see going forward in this season. And a little bit about the White Sox. Again, relax. Your team has put runs on the board. That hasn't been the question. And you've got Chris Sale back, and he pitched a gem today. So don't freak out. You've got Jose Abreu. Avi Garcia is playing really well, and he's crushing the ball. You've got Connor Gillespie and Gordon Beckham that are both hitting the ball well. So you've got third baseman that's hitting. And sure, your middle relief pitchers are not what you'd hoped, but you've got David Robertson, who came out and showed you why you paid him the big bucks and lights out as a closer. So sure, they've got some shoring up to do, but at least you've got one thing to consider. One option is you've got Carlos Rodon came in his first AAA start and fanned 9. So he came out today for a AAA Charlotte and struck out 9 in 5 innings against Baltimore's AAA affiliate in Norfolk. So one potential option is you do bring him up as well and you put him in the bullpen and that definitely shores up your middle relief. You're the White Sox. You've already got hitters. You've got starting pitching up the wazoo, and I know people are pissed about Samardzija in that first game of the season and getting lit up. Jeff Samardzija is a good pitcher, and once this rotation kind of cycles through once, twice, you're going to see that you're going to see the stuff he has in Chicago, and Cubs fans saw for a long time what he can do. He's a good pitcher, and you've got a solid 5-man rotation. You've got a solid reliever, and you've got hitting. You just shore up some of that middle relief, and which can be possibly done with Rodon, and you're back into things. You got back-to-back wins over the Twins, so again, just relax. It's a long season, 162-game season. That is a marathon and not a sprint. And that leaves us with the Chicago Bears. Not too much to say about them. Like I said last week, I really, really expect the Bears to slow down a lot on what they're doing in free agency because the NFL draft is coming up. You've got this lull where if you think about free agency, you break it down to that first couple days is when you sign all the big money, big name guys. They go off the board. Then you go through this first batch of shorter, less guaranteed money, maybe even 1-year deals, guys. And then there's the draft, and you see what you can fill in the draft. Then you go through that last round of free agent guys and see who's available. And it used to be there was no guys available towards that time. You were getting scrub guys, but there's still talent on the board at certain positions. I mean, cornerback, most of the good cornerbacks have been rounded up and signed somewhere. There wasn't any good quarterbacks, but there's still some players out there. Especially, one of them is a position that the Bears do have a hole in, and that's wide receiver. But before that, I guess slipped my mind is I really want to wish best of luck to Charles Tillman. He's one of my all-time favorite Chicago Bears. Wonderful guy, wonderful football player, the best cornerback the Bears have ever had. He signed a 1-year deal to play with Carolina Panthers and Ron Rivera. So I really wish him the best. I hope he doesn't tear that tricep again. I hope he's able to finish the season and play well because he really deserves it. I'm such a classy guy. I wish him the best. And if you're listening out there, you've always got a forum coming onto the show if you want to, and we can talk whatever. But Charles Tillman is officially not a Chicago Bear, and he will be with Carolina Panthers this year. But with that is, like I said before, the free agents period, the Bears are going to be very quiet. Right now they're focusing on the draft and getting ready for that. And I feel like they'll probably make a move or two after the draft some point. They're going to see what holes they can fill through the draft, and then reevaluate the position that they're in after the draft and maybe try to sign another one of these one or two deals that are those 1-year prove-it deals that Ryan Pace seems to like so much. So with that, kind of looking at where the Bears' holes are, and they do still have a lot of holes. This is a team that was really, really bad last year, and they do have a lot of holes. They've shored up some of them temporarily, we're all in Chicago, so we know what there's patching a pothole, then there's fixing a pothole. And right now they've done a lot of patching of potholes, and they're looking in the draft to start developing players to fill those potholes. So if I'm looking at what positions we need and ranking them, I think you got to put wide receiver first. It went from a position of strength last year to a position of weakness getting rid of Brandon Marshall. And I still think that was the right move, but you do have to fill that hole. Then probably 3-4 defensive end. Sure, you got Jarvis Jenkins and Ray McDonald playing those positions, but after that, what do you have? You're going to have to bring in some talent to play behind them and go into that rotation and fill that hole going forward because those guys are both on a 1-year deal. Cornerback, definitely need a cornerback. You got Kyle Fuller, but then who else do you have besides that? There's not much in free agency. I think you're going to have to infuse some cornerback talent in. Inside linebacker. You signed Mason Foster to a 1-year deal. But you still have Shea McClellan and John Bostic. Outside linebacker. Yeah, you've got a lot of guys. But who's the guy? I really think you need an elite pass rusher on the outside linebacker spot. And I'm not going to go through every position the Bears need because I will be here all night and talking about most positions. But I will start with Mock Draft 4.0. So like I said before, is the Bears have the 7th pick overall. And when you're looking at that 7th pick, some people can look at it as I have free pick of most anybody I want, and I can get X, Y, and Z player. But the way I look at it is, when you pick number 7, you have to pick an elite guy. You can't just pick a guy like a Danny Shelton just because he fits a hole you have and he's the best player at the position, or he's ranked as the best player at the position. I don't necessarily agree. And you just draft him because you don't want to just draft a guy that you couldn't get later on. If you're the Bears and you have the number 7 pick, you have to get an elite player. And there's only a handful of guys that I think that are worthy of that number 7 pick for the Chicago Bears. And I'm not even saying that all those guys are going to be available. Perfect world, you want 7 players if you're the number 7 pick. But I've got 5 players, and I think at least one of those guys should be available. One, Leonard Williams. That guy, you would put him in at your defensive end position, and he is a beast. He's going to step right in. He's going to start over either Jenkins or McDonald day 1 and dominate. So he would, if he fell to the Bears, I would be falling to my knees and going, "Thank you, Jeebus, woo!" Love Leonard Williams. 2, Kevin White, big playmaker, big tall guy. He's worthy of a number 7 pick. Amari Cooper, worthy of a 7 pick. Dante Fowler Jr., worthy of a 7 pick. Jameis Winston, worthy of a 7 pick. And you'll notice I took off a name that I've had as my top pick a few times now in my mock drafts, and that's Shane Ray. And the reason is, I think he's great. I'm watching him. I am not seeing what other people are seeing. I'm seeing a lot of different things. And I've watched a lot of film on Shane Ray. But enough people that I respect question Shane Ray. And some of them don't question him permanently. They just don't think he's going to step right in. I think he's going to take some time to adjust to the NFL and then figure it out. But because there's enough people questioning him, makes me question myself a little bit if I'm missing something. But whatever. I decided to put him in a second tier of guys. So there's that first tier, those that are elite players that you have to get one of those guys at number 7. And then there's that second tier, which is the kind of guys you would go with if you trade back and you try to trade back. And that would be a Danny Shelton, even though I'm putting an asterisk by him because I'm still not that high on him. Trey Waynes, Landon Collins, Eric Armstead, Shane Ray. Those would be like a tier 2 kind of guy. So with that in mind, I did my mock draft 4.0. And like I always do, I do 4 drafts. I kind of evaluate. Sometimes when you use the mock draft simulator, you'll get an anomaly where somebody falls really far down. Like you wind up with a Landon Collins in the second round, which happened. So I sort of do a correction factor and adjust it based on a little bit of reality. And sure, when you watch the draft, there's always going to be some kind of anomalies where a guy falls, that like an Aaron Rodgers to 20-something pick. But I can't plan on that, so I'm trying to keep it a little bit realistic. So I did 4 drafts and I kind of made my mock 4.0 as out of those 4 drafts. So the first one was Jameis Winston fell to me in round 1. Jameis Winston falls to you. You take him. Sorry. That's what you do. Then he's your quarterback next year. Maybe even sometime this year. Round 2, Dorial Green Beckham, wide receiver. Round 3, Ronis Grasu. And 4 is Donovan Smith, the offensive tackle from Penn State. And I know some of you are probably screaming and pulling your hair out going, 4 offensive guys. Blah! Yeah, I picked 4 offensive guys. When I was going through, I picked the best player available in those spots. And sure, I could have reached and picked somebody else, but why? All 4 of those spots will fit a need that I have. Quarterback, wide receiver, center, right tackle. Bill's a need for all of them, and it was the best player available. So, whatever. That's the way it falls. That's the way it falls. Second draft was Jameis Winston fell again. I'm shocked too. Then Landon Collins fell to the second round. Don't see that one happening in real life. Ronis Grasu, the center from Oregon, fell in the third round. And Jesse James, the tight end from Penn State, in the fourth round. My third was Kevin White in the first round. Jordan Phillips, defensive tackle out of Oklahoma, the second round. Devin Funchess, the tight end from Michigan. They had played wide receiver at Michigan, but I think project him as tight end. We'll talk about that more in a second. So Devin Funchess from Michigan and Eric Rowe from Utah. And my fourth was Kevin White, Eric Armstead in the second, Devin Funchess, and James Sample, the safety out of Louisville. Sorry, I made some notes. I'm flipping around. You can hear my paper flip. So the conglomerate mock that I made for my mock 4.0 is first round, Kevin White, wide receiver out of West Virginia. Second round, Jordan Phillips, defensive tackle out of Oklahoma. Third, Devin Funchess, tight end out of Michigan. And fourth, Donovan Smith, offensive tackle out of Penn State. So there's only X number of players that are impact enough to be in the number 7 position, as I talked about a few minutes ago. Kevin White is a physical freak and will give Cutler an instant option and potentially a better wide receiver combo than Marshall Jeffrey. Because as good as Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey were, they were pretty much the same guy. You want a better complementary pair, and that's what this would be. You'd have a slower but much more physical possession type receiver of Alshon Jeffrey who can make some moves and beat some guys deep, but you have a completely different type of wide receiver in Kevin White, and I think he's a better complement, and I feel like you put him in day one and suddenly you have a very potent offense. Jordan Phillips is the nose tackle you want in the middle of this defensive line. Like most defensive tackles, he has work ethic problems, but I really feel he could be basically Terrence Knighton. I like Jordan Phillips in the center of your defensive line playing nose tackle. Second round, you're not overdrafting by picking a Danny Shelton. You can get him in the second round, and he's going to be a big boy up the middle. It's going to be hard to run on. Devin Funchess, even though he played wide receiver at Michigan, he projects as a tight end in the NFL. And you've got Martellus Bennett. Devin Funchess doesn't have to step right up and be your number 1 tight end. He's got a whole year of spot playing and being able to grow and learn from a Martellus Bennett before he comes in. So I really like that. You can use that time to physically grow and get stronger and bigger. He was a talented guy at Michigan, and I think working in a professional offense, he's just going to develop and be a good tight end threat. And then fourth is Donovan Smith. If Jordan Mills doesn't already step right up and spend this offseason getting a lot better than he did last year, Donovan Smith comes right in as an upgrade over what you had at right tackle last year. And with Will Montgomery being a step up from Roberto Garza and Donovan Smith coming in and being a step up over Jordan Mills, your offensive line is already better. So with that said is, with that draft, you take care of your biggest glaring weakness, which is wide receiver, and you plug it with a guy who's an elite prospect that's worthy of a number 7 pick. But should they decide to pick one of the other guys, like say Leonard Williams falls to them and they don't end up with an elite wide receiver, at least wide receiver is a position with free agents still available that you can pick up and have it be a wide receiver option. Options that are still available: Michael Crabtree. I know he's not the same receiver since before his Achilles basically exploded, but he's only 27 years old, and he's a guy that's you can sign him to a 1-year deal and have him be one of those prove-it deals that Ryan Pace is so fond of. But you can get Michael Crabtree on a 1-year prove-it deal, and he's going to be out to prove it because he's only 27 years old, and he's probably spent all of the money he's made so far. So he's going to want another contract. So he's going to play as best as he can. And he's probably not going to be pain in the ass either because he wants another contract. So Michael Crabtree is an option. And then there's Greg Jennings. Greg Jennings is a smooth route runner with nice hands. He's a savvy veteran. He could mentor somebody if you bring in some younger guys. And he's played at top-level offense in Green Bay, and he fell into a little bit of oblivion playing in quarterback wasteland of Minnesota. But coming to the Bears, I think he could fill that role. And I wouldn't sign either of these guys if you draft Kevin White, but these could be options for you if you decide to go somewhere else. So you're not drafting out of need. So if you're the Bears and you look at it and you say, we feel Dante Fowler is the best option available when they draft at 7, and you end up not getting a wide receiver, or you get somebody in the later rounds that's a project, you still do have options for another wide receiver, a veteran wide receiver, to go into the season with. So don't look for the Bears to be done in free agency, but I would say expect them to be done for the next 2.5 weeks until after the draft, and where they can see what they get in the draft and reevaluate what they have and what their holes still are. So I really think that's going to be it. Next week is going to be kind of a crazy episode because we'll have the Bulls in the playoffs. We'll have the Blackhawks in the playoffs. We will have Leicester with another start, and Chris Sale and Jeff Samardzija with another start. And we'll be right on the heels of the NFL draft. So with that in mind, I'm going to sign off now. Thanks a lot for listening. Make sure you check us out at SwerskiSports.com, Twitter at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, and check out our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs, at icehogs.com and audible.com. Get a free audiobook at audible.com/Swerski Sports. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go bearing